back to Owl003. Please like, subscribe, and share the content if you like what I'm doing. Okay, so and I promise next thing I will post will be a mystery target. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about what were the changes made to Ingos Controlled remote viewing, who changed them, and why. Okay. First, we need to go back in history a little bit and talk about not all the players, but some of them. Okay, so I want you to remember, so now after Ingo trained his students, okay, now they bring this application into a military setting. Now, there were other people that were in the military that were not trained by Ingo directly, or they were civilians, whatever. So, first of all, who were the most proficient remote viewers used in the unit? Right off the top of my head is Joe, and Monagle, and Angela F. Now, make no mistake, I love controlled remote viewing, guys. I use it all the time. But the fact of the matter is, neither one of these guys used controlled remote viewing. Why? They already had their own system, okay, that was very efficient. And when you have that, and you go and you try and rework things that you've already kind of developed, very likely you're going to be worse at it, trying to rebuild what you're already getting with the methodology, okay? Now, you also have a very militant-like environment, okay? Hierarchies, personalities, a lot of that, okay? Now, Joe and Angela didn't use controlled remote viewing, but they were probably the most proficient remote viewers the unit had, okay? Now, let's start to talk about the changes, all right? Now, first of all, stage one, the idiogram process, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it's very technical when it's taught the way I was learned, okay? So, but the one thing you need to understand about the idiogram process is, and I've talked to Daz about this on his thing, and it's an amazing technology within itself, meaning I've used it in gambling, where I've gone straight idiogram in a conceptual, horse racing sketch to match the horse racer. I've used it. Daz uses it for, they use it for like market predictions and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is, your idiogram evolves over time. I mean, the more you use it, it evolves. So when you're first getting used to the technology, remember, this format was built by Ingo for people who did not know what psychic means, okay? They had no idea what it feels like, what it tastes like. So he built this system, right? So you get these coordinates, blah, 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 boom, and you hit an idiogram. And then your baseline is you're just feeling for textures. Now, or feeling motion, okay? Density, the very raw impressions to objectify what this is, blah, 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 A, B, land, whatever. Now, that's kind of how I was taught it, the way Ingo taught it, all right? So, to his students. Now, you have, there's this, so Lynn kind of takes this a little more of a visual aspect, which to be fair, even Tom McNear in his book with Daz, I think, or something they wrote, did say there's a visual aspect of it. Now, you could sit here and like fight over these like little details. The bottom line is there is this framework of perception, okay? And whether it's seen or felt, to me, it's just knowing. When I do as soon as I put my pen in there, I could pull out everything. Okay, we've got a person, we've got this, that, the other. And whether I break that all down right there, like there's land, there's structures, there's this, there's that. The thing is too, is once I've made that mark, stage 2 impressions are barreling down the pipe. Okay? So whether I sit there and break all that down or not, I'm already there. Okay? And it wants to keep going. All right? You just want to keep opening this up, right? So the base idea of a ideogram, kind of, okay, again, I'm giving this to you guys in ways that are just comparatively. Okay, so you got like a present, right? You want it, or a box. You want to know what's in there. Ideogram is just like a boop, like a small hole. Okay, because if you try to punch too big of a hole in there, it's going to start screwing everything up. All right, because your analytical mind's going to kick in. But here's what happens. Okay, after doing this over and over and over and over, when you hit this ideogram, your initial puncture tends to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so you get more information. And if you know your own internal mechanism after once the protocol becomes second nature, it takes on kind of another dimension. So anyway, it's advanced ideograms. Okay, now, so by my instructor's complaint, like Lynn's version is more of a visual thing or something, which, again, no matter how you break it down, guys, in a full target, unless you're using the ideogram for just like a specific, just that tool, it's a door. It's a door to this target. And once you're good at this, it doesn't really matter. it just doesn't matter. So whether it's this door or it looks like this or this, it doesn't matter. It's a door to get into the target, okay? And by stage 2, you're getting bigger impressions anyway. That's kind of how it grows. Now, Ed's version, which from what I've been told by people that's trained with Ed directly, Ed was taught a little bit differently. Here's likely why, in my opinion. Now, Ed is he's a smart guy. He's very analytical minded. He knows languages and this and that. Well, that's a very left-brained persona, okay? So, like some of the stuff he did were like, I think one of his things are like you only write like the halfway down the page or something, because when he was in training, he would write all the way down to the very edge where you couldn't even read it. So that was something that Ingo applied to him. And then Ed went and took off that. And so when Ed made his changes came from the perspective of a very analytical mind, in my opinion. Okay. Now, let's talk about the actual change. So Ingo had this ideogram process, and how Ingo had it set up was every time you had an AOL, like rocky, salty, AOL break, mountain, okay? Well, then he would have you put the pen down, take the ideogram again, 111, 666, 444, boom. Break it all down again and start again in order to kind of drive you back into the signal. I would feel that's probably the idea behind that, to try and keep your system in this structure framework and to teach you to quit, to keep everything in the stages you're in. So that was how Ingo trained it, all right, to his students. At some point, someone in the military unit that was trained by Ingo, and my guess it is only one of two people or both, just Tom McNear or Paul, went and said, you know what? This is slowing stuff down. If we just AOL this, drop our pen, and wait, that AOL dissolves, then we could just keep going with stage 2 ideograms, okay? Or stage 2 impressions, right? Bigger impressions. Okay, so right away, okay, stage 1, and I would consider this part of stage 1, or 1 and 2, depending how you look at it, that's a change, okay? Made by one or two of these people or both. I don't know. All right, so, but already that's a change. Now, who determines how big of a change that is not for these people to determine. That's for Ingo to determine. Now, my instructor, when I asked my instructor, I said, because I asked him this, I said, did Ingo ever see any of the, like, you use any of the changes you implied? You know, did he ever, like, monitor you and see these changes? And he said, no. Okay, so my suspicion would be, it's very likely that, you know, because there's a letter that was bolstered, that is bolstered, as some kind of approval of the manual. He was not aware of those particular changes. Okay, would be my suspicion. I don't know, but bottom line is, it's not Ingo. Okay, that made that change. Now, another thing was, in stage 2, Ingo wants this information all down the middle. Okay, it's very much like you're getting almost like a computer, like data bits coming. So he didn't want any lines on the page. In his mind, lines were like a delete information type of a situation. So all the information in stage 2 would come up. You labeled stage 2. Boom, boom, boom. You just soft, rocky, whatever. Okay, colors, whatever. Right. Now, in Ingo's methodology, what he was taught, so you'd go through the stage 2. This is what I was told anyway. So you get your AI, your aesthetic impact. You say, oh, I feel a sense of grand here, or a sense of awe. I feel a sense of awe. So now you've broken this down. You've come to a big feeling about this target. Now, I will say, the way I was taught this is you take, this is an AI aesthetic impact break. Meaning you take this sensation you're feeling here, you put it down, and you move on. Now, there are, I know the way Lori teaches it, which I don't know if she got, I would assume she got this from Lynn, is to sink into this AI, okay? That will somehow draw you in closer to the target. I don't know that to be the case, but somebody along the line that was taught this felt that was the case, so they applied that change. So that's another change. Let's say by Lynn. But anyway, after this, whether you dissolve it or not, you go into sketching, okay? Now, when you start sketching, the way it originally was salty, tasty, like white, you're doing colors, and, you know, Ingo would have them just keep putting the impressions. The sketch would be like right in the middle of the page. So another thing that one of these two applied, likely, or both, was, which actually, I remembered, I think that my instructor kind of liked this idea from Lynn, which was to move everything to the left, your impressions, to leave room for your sketch, which makes sense, right? I mean, that kind of makes sense. But either way, this is Ingo's method, his protocol, his ideology, his legacy. Okay, that's how he set it up. All right. Now, let's get to some other personalities here. We've got Ed. Ed is a very, I'll have somebody, I've never trained in TRV. I can just tell you from my perspective of seeing it. They have something where he pulls out all the pieces and then they kind of like come together. I don't know. It works, okay? But people that are analytical minded seem to be more kind of drawn to that from my perspective, okay? Whatever. All right, it works fine. Now, Dave Morehouse was not trained by Ingo, okay? But his ideogram process, I would say, is closer to Paul's, or the way, or closer to, I would say closer to Paul's, because neither one of them do it how Ingo taught it. Okay, neither one of these people, if they were doing it how Ingo taught it, they would disseminate an AOL every single time and then go through stage one again. That's Ingo's product. That's Ingo's product that was changed. Okay, so Dave Morehouse does basically similar to what Paul does, but he adds like another column, I think, for energetics or some shit. I don't know, something. Whatever. So either way, it's different, no matter how you look at it, okay? Now, there was a email sent out to an instructor saying, you can't do this, okay? You can't, you know, you're training this wrong, or this, that, and the other. You can't call it this, that, or the other, by somebody in this unit, which I think is pretty obvious who, the big bully in town, right? Made an email and said, Lynn, you better change this, you can't teach it, whatever the case, right? So Lynn applies, you know, his, which in a conceptual framework is about as similar, okay? It's just he's changed some terms, he calls them something else, but very similar, all right? He calls AOL stray cats, he calls other stuff. But as far as like real changes into the product that Ingo created, there's the, you know, moving stuff to the side. There is the, I guess, you know, the training of a visual aspect, okay, into the ideogram. And you know, he also doesn't do the AOL thing over again because he was trained by Paul, or whatever, one of these guys. So that are some of the things. So, and again, the AI, where they like lean into the aesthetic impact, which is, you know, regardless, it seems to work, excuse me, about as efficiently, all right? Or as efficiently. Do I think it's more efficient? No. But who cares? So now, so who's upholding Ingo's legacy? Like who's teaching Ingo's legacy? None of them. If you go to instruction from Paul, that's Paul's legacy. You could stand in front of a picture shaking a hand in front of Ingo, but it doesn't make it Ingo's. That's Paul's legacy you're learning, okay? Dave Morehouse, that's Dave's legacy. Lynn's, that's Lynn's. Ed's, that's Ed's. It's just a fact. Now, who gets to choose what's doctrine and what's not in Ingo's product? None of these people. It's not theirs. It's not theirs. They've all made adjustments, changes, and I'm not grilling anybody for making those changes, but I will say, if somebody's taking a position of they're teaching Ingo's true legacy and stuff, that's sales tactics, guys. That's BS. And make no mistake, these guys hate each other. I mean, obviously, there's constant battling, okay? So, now, I will say, like, Dave Morehouse's, I've seen, like, he does a lot of stuff to me that's a little redundant. Like count how many times did you get this impression? How many, like he does an analysis and all that. So a lot of these guys a lot of them add more things. And I will give Daz a little credit when he said to me, he's like, if I do change anything or if I do anything, I do any tools, I try and simplify instead of adding, which to me makes probably more sense. Now, so again, if somebody's charging you, this insane amount of money because they say this is Ingos' product, it's not. It's not Ingos' product. It's their take on Ingos' product. Okay? It's just the way it is. Sorry. And they can market it however they want, but these are the facts. Okay? What else? All right. I got that straightened out. Now, there are other methodologies that claim to be an advancement on something, their framework is bigger, better, whatever. And let's say they lay out a target that they consider is advanced, like it's metaphorical in nature or something weird, right? Okay. But maybe through their training, whoever, for example's sake, let's say HRVG, and they lay out some kind of maybe a target that's more like a metaphorical aspect. Who knows, right? So a lot of times the CRV guy they'll hit that target and they'll be like, this is bullshit or garbage or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's not that they can't hit this target. But the way, so if you want a CRV guy to hit a target like that, you need to build it into the tasking like that. And what I mean is, when I go to hit an ideogram, I'm looking for reality. Okay, I'm looking for textures. I'm looking for taste. Like, I need to sink my feet into something that's real, land, person. Well, there should be an environment here. Okay, if there's not an environment here, I'm just going to assume it's illusionary data. Okay, so what you would do in that case is you set up like what this based around, a book or whatever, and then you could use focal points to ask questions or however you want to do it. But we are trained to land in reality when we get into this target. We could ask questions once we get to like stage 4.5 and we'll start breaking it out. But that has nothing to do with advanced. It's just we're built where we don't respect that. That's not how we do it. But you can get those answers, but you got to task it correctly. All right. So as soon as someone changes anything, all right, no matter how small, it's not theirs anymore, guys. It's not theirs. So these subtle things have been applied, likely in my mind, because from their perspective as a person learning it works for them, or they think it's a great idea, and but you look at all these people that use a variety of remote viewing methods, it doesn't seem to really much matter. Now, the summary. Oh, that's another thing. The summary was added, I think. I don't think that was a whole other thing, too, that Tom or Paul added. I don't know. I don't think Ingo had that. And they wanted that because, again, this is the military. They want things. They want something they could train. They want something they could, a product they could instill. And they want an analysis of how that data flowed out and be able to use it in an operational manner. So these additions and stuff were very built around a militant mind. Okay, so if that's the kind of analyst you are, that's what you want to see. If you're built differently or you're trained differently, you may want to see the data flow a different kind of a way, lay out a different way. All right. So there are these subtle changes. None of them is Ingos CRV. None of them. Are any of them an advancement of CRV? Like Ingos here? I don't know. You know, my guess would be Ingo using whatever he was using would probably kick some ass, you know, no matter what. So again, that's why I come back to you better be real careful in how you put things, because I'm a stickler for the details, man. If you are claiming you got a better way to do things, you better have a way to prove that. Because it all has a similar kind of effect. It's a growing phenomenon. Like the more you do it, the better you get, the quicker the data comes, the higher level data comes faster. It's a compounding kind of a thing. Okay, it's an evolution within you. There's time, like I said, I mean, you could do, or I think Daz, and I don't know if Dave did this or what, but I see Daz do this, or Daz's students and stuff, well, they hit an idiogram like at the top of the page, the next page or something, kind of like to guide them back into the signal, maybe. That's the principle behind it. Which, to be honest, is kind of similar how Ingo did it. It's just, I don't think that they don't go through the A/B process again, okay? His whole thing is keeping the flow moving, keeping the data moving, which is, you know, it's the right idea. So, again, this is my take on this, okay? But by all means, do your homework, because this is, again, this is dark, guys. These guys were all in a hurry to market this, and, you know, so they could sell it to people. So that's why it's so cutthroat. So anyway, that's my take on this, and we'll catch you next time on Owl003. Like, subscribe, and share.